I need to know here. I might be wrong in my presumption of being right. And then it opens up, I think that's part of what opens up the underlying motivation for true Socratic questioning. Like if I'm talking to my wife, I actually want to know, even though part of me doesn't, why she thinks what I'm doing isn't working. Because it's possible that if I could listen carefully enough, I could find out something stupid that I'm doing and quit doing it. And I would rather stop doing stupid things because life's hard enough without putting up unnecessary obstacles.
Now imagine these kinds of discussions going on. They happen there's a 15-minute Socratic launch in the morning. There's a 15-minute launch after lunch. There's a 15-minute close. So these young people are having on a detailed moral problem of real relevance to them, these Socratic discussions over and over and over again every day. And then...
So what would a discussion like that look like? What kind of topic might come up for discussion?
It might be we're having an issue with clicks in the studio. And so there would be something about what is a click and how do clicks form.
Right.
And the question might be...
So it's applied
sociology. Actually, what we would ask you is, we would say, what's the biggest issue in the studio right now? Is it intentionality? Is it civility? Is it excellence?
Right. Prioritization of
and whichever one they picked, it would be, okay, what should we do about that? Should we set SMART goals? Should we run a 360 survey? Should we... And then after a very short while, they're leading these discussions. What should we do and why? It's always relevant. There's probably a hero story. In fact, the way we do civilization, I've talked with Larry Arnn at Hillsdale about this. You'll be in a group of 5 10-year-olds, and you get a question to go research. And the question might be, was John F. Kennedy the ne'er-do-well son of a rich man or America's greatest president assassinated in his prime? Now, 10-year-olds have no idea who John F. Kennedy is. Right? But he was assassinated. He was a rich guy. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, right.
So they'll go spend 30 minutes researching or an hour researching all about Kennedy.
Yeah.
Then they'll come back and they'll start debating that. And before they're done, it'll be like, well, what does make a great president?
Yeah.
And what is your prime? And what is... No adults. These deep, rich... And by the way, after that, you never forget who John Kennedy was or the Cuban Missile Crisis. But all it takes is one question and the right rules of engagement.
Yeah.
And you can back away.
Yeah, well, that's also how you can set up critical thinking as a really motivating game. So in my fourth year seminar, we would go through scientific papers one by one. I would pick the papers, classic scientific papers, and then I would extract out some of the core questions. And then this was fun. I divided the groups, my students, there's about 20, into groups of 4, and I put the introverts in one group and the extroverts another. And the reason is that introverts will talk, but their threshold for speaking is higher and the lag time is longer. So if you have an extrovert in with a bunch of introverts, because they're more likely to interrupt earlier. So I'd put the introverts together. So that was fun. And I would assign a side of the question arbitrarily. And the rule was, look, I don't really care what your opinion is about this issue, not because I don't care about your opinion, but because it's worthwhile to explore the entire problem set, and it's very worthwhile to learn to think critically. And to think critically, you have to take opposing sides. And so the students would have this discussion, and then the rest of them would vote on the outcome. And it was extraordinarily engaging, and the students really liked it, and they would spend in-class time doing the investigation right then and there, right?
Without you having to do anything, right? Well, we did the same with the Revolutionary War. You have the Tories, you have the Patriots, and then you have this group in between. It was about a third, and a third.
Yeah.
And then it's like the two sides, the Tories and the Patriots, have to argue, and the people in the middle are going to vote with their feet, and you're going to see who won. So there's all sorts of just experiment after experiment afafter experiment like that.
And so so that's what Pageau, my friend, I have a friend who's a very deep religious thinker, and he's developed a model of governance that's very much like that, that's extracted out of the Exodus story. It has to do with the distribution of response. So imagine there's tyranny and chaos, and so that'd be tyranny and slavery, let's say. And then there's a model of good governance that is the alternative to both of those. And it's something like distributed responsibility and something like this idea of nested games. So in the subsidiary organization, an individual has responsibility for himself, and then paired individuals have responsibility for their family, and then paired families have responsibility for the community, and then paired communities have responsibility for the state. And there's games going on at every level that are, well, they should be games that are guided by the spirit of the logos fundamentally, but it should be distributed at every single level. And that's the opposite of a totalitarian system. So instead, like in a totalitarian system, every single person lies about everything all the time. And in a well-governed system, the opposite of the lie isn't the truth. It's more like something like the humble approach to expanding knowledge.
Right. It's an experiment or something I'm going to try.
It's a way of generating new knowledge.
Well, so think about the individual, the squad, the 36 people in a cohort, and then the whole campus.
Yeah.
And then you have people that are also doing, they're specializing in chemistry versus math. And so you've got all these mixes like that going on all the time.
Right.
And out of that comes a culture.
Right. And also because you have that diverse range of options. So the answer to the problem of inequality isn't equality. The answer to the problem of inequality is a diverse enough game so that the distribution of inequality is normal, right? So, like you said, you can be a good plumber, you can be a good abstract mathematician. It doesn't matter. They're both infinitely playable games, and they're infinitely expandable games.
Well, and the question that keeps getting asked over and over again, so one of the other things they go do is they go do what are called stars and stepping stones interviews, where you'll find people you admire who are between, if let's say you're in high school, your age and 25 and 40, and then over the age of 60. So there's a range. And you'll go, and what we found by doing thousands of those is at the age of 60, most people ask the same three questions. They phrase them differently, but it is, did I contribute something meaningful? Was I a good person? And who did I love and who loved me? Those three questions, even at age 8, are always on the table.
Say them again.
So, did I contribute something meaningful?
Right. So meaningful, specific.
Meaningful. Was I a good person? Who did I love and who loved me?
Right.
Now, I bring that up because we could pick, you and I could prioritize those differently and both win the game, right?
Right.
So you're always asking, and by the way, those questions mean something different. Was I a good person means kind of black and white moral choice at 11, maybe even 15. It probably around your 20s, 30s, or 40s, it's about, am I becoming who I was meant to become? Good has a different meaning, right? A slightly different meaning.
Right. It's not so much abiding by the appropriate rules.
But while we keep offering these moral choices that allow you to kind of self-rank in different ways, it's not only aptitudes, it's also what's important in life, because you got to ask what's success. It's not how much money you make.
Yeah.
Making money's great. But that's not the ultimate measure. Is it being how kind you are?
Making money is great if it facilitates the other things that you just described, right? If it provides you with an expanded horizon of opportunity. It's not so great if it enables your hedonistic impulsivity. In fact, it can just kill you. I had lots of clients who were fine when they were broke.
Yeah.
But one client in particular, he used to get his unemployment check. He was disabled and workplace injury. And he was a pretty simple person. And he was easily exploited by psychopaths. And those were his friends. And what would happen to him is he'd get his unemployment check, once a month. And so he'd have lots of money for 3 days. And it was off to the bar and nose deep in cocaine and face down in a ditch. And all his terrible parasitical friends would gather around him until his bones were plucked dry.
Like vultures,
eventually that killed him.
Wow.
Yeah. And so money is an enabler, but it's also an enabler of vice.
Yeah.
So be careful, right? Be careful with money. So, okay, so let's do something practical first.
Okay.
So that if people are interested in these Acton schools,
yes,
where can they find more information?
Sure. Acton, like ACTON, academy.org is where the schools are featured. There's also something fascinating we do if you want to take a mini step. It's called the Children's Business Fair, where children will come and for one day pitch a business. They'll have a business where they sell things.
Oh, yeah.
We will have this year 1,000 of those fairs across the United States and across the world. And we'll serve about 50,000 young people. And all you have to do if you want to start one of those, that's kind of a stepping stone to an Acton, is put out 7 tables in your front yard and have your kids tell their friends. And we have a whole system that we pay for everything. We provide prize money just as it's just the thing our family wants to do.
Uh-huh.
And so
And where can people find information about
Children's
that?
Business Fair. If you just Google that or childrensbusinessfair.org. There's a 2-minute video. It shows how you can start one in your backyard. Or actonacademy.org if people are interested in the school.
Okay. Well, we'll make sure we put those links in the description. Now, we haven't talked at all about higher education. Maybe we should
Okay.
diverge into that momentarily.
So we could talk about my mystic ventures in reform under Governor Perry, Texas Governor Perry. I think I'll leave those for something more positive, and just talk about what are we seeing from our super competent high schoolers who we call launch padders because they're launching out in the world. And what we're seeing increasingly is a belief that many colleges are about prestige, and what they're about is competence.
Yeah.
And so, of course, if you get a free ride to MIT and you're a gifted engineer, you go to MIT,
Yeah.
right? I mean, of course you would do that.
Yeah.
Would you pay $400?
So far.
So far, right?
Yeah.
Right? No, that could all change.
Yeah.
If you're, from well, it doesn't matter who you are, should you pay $400,000 from a no-name degree that won't get you a job from a place no one's ever heard of? No, that's a terrible idea. So
Yeah.
we're seeing that with all of these apprenticeships, our launch padders are coming out and they can get into whatever competitive college their scores are high enough to get into.
Yeah.
But about 4 out of 10 are going directly into industry and maybe hacking a degree somewhere on the side. But they've realized, so I think we're seeing our best and brightest begin to vote with their feet
Yeah.
and begin to think of college as a tool that may or may not be necessary.
I think that's more true of the boys.
No, I think it's pretty equally true. Now, I will say, there is something to be said for college. If you want to go to football games, paint your face, be in a tribe,
Yeah,
and chase
yeah.
girls or guys.
Yeah, right.
That's kind of what college has left.
Yeah. Well,
And
you
so
know,
if you-
and
there's nothing bad about that.
Well,
but
we
that's
should
not-
also, again, give the devil his due. I mean, I've been trying to sort out why people will pay, let's say, $200,000 for a 4-year degree. And here's a couple of reasons. Is you get away from your parents, you have a transition point, you establish a new group